Tonight on Let It Rip, the GOP candidates running for Michigan governor may have shrunk by 5, but there are still plenty of contenders still in the race. They faced off in a debate earlier today. Fox 2's Charlie Langton was there. He'll join us, but first.
Nobody had any reason to think this person was a confidential source. What I was doing was working hard behind the scenes to do what needed to be done years ago.
Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan accused by the Detroit News of outing a confidential FBI informant. We'll talk about that and other news coming out of the Mackinac Policy Conference. Time now to let it rip. On the panel tonight, Chair of the Oakland County Republican Party, Rocky Rachowski, PR guru and co-host of the No BS News Hour, and Detroit News columnist Karen Dumas. State Representative Sri Tenadar, who we should also mention is running in the Democratic primary to be the next congressman from the 13th District, also joins us. And we are very honored to have former governor of the great state of Michigan, the Honorable Jim Blanchard, with us as well. Charlie Langton is beaming in from Mackinac Island tonight, and he wants to make sure everyone knows that he's missing out on some good parties tonight to join us, and we're going to get to that in a moment. But you know what? We're going to get to this first. Karen, let's start with you, because we had the mayor of Detroit, Mike Duggan, accused of basically outing a federal informant in an ongoing corruption allegation. The mayor holds a news conference, denies everything, and now all of a sudden it's disappeared from the news cycle. Is this a non-story like the mayor claims, or is this the mayor getting a pass?
Well, I think this is a mayor getting a pass, as he has continued to do throughout his administration. I mean, it is just very surprising and disappointing with the pass that he's given for almost everything that he's done. Questioning what has happened is not criticizing what is being done, but he has not been held accountable for so many things. If you remember, he did an interview actually on Fox 2 about steering contracts for demolition business. And he said, oh yeah, I did that, but I've lost sleep over it. Okay, well, there are people that were serving, prison time for doing that. I just think it's very disingenuous and to the discredit of the administration and to the disservice of the people of the city of Detroit for him to just not ever be questioned or held accountable for anything.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment. Charlie Langton, you had the chance to talk with the mayor just moments after his news conference, in which he said, look, I didn't do anything wrong here, and I'm being transparent. Does transparency alone negate the fact that there was some wrongdoing?
What you got to prove? What did he do? I look at it from an illegal point of view. What did he do illegal? A couple of lawyers on this panel. Nothing. He did nothing illegal. Someone approached him. It was Andre Spivey, told the mayor, I took a bribe. He got it on tape, and here's the person I gave the bribe to. The mayor then calls his law department, and he calls the chief of police, Chief Craig at the time, and he says, hey, one of our council people is going to probably go under by the feds, and here's the guy who did it. All during this, the mayor was investigating towing corruption in the city. What's the mayor supposed to do? He's supposed to keep quiet? Anyway, but it is not illegal to disclose a confidential source.
If it's not illegal, it's not illegal. But does it put someone else's life or someone else's person in danger? For instance, the informant, when their name is out there, Governor Blanchard, whether or not it's illegal or not, was it the right thing to do?
Well, I'm conversant with all the details. The question is, was it? I've known Duggan long enough to know that I'm assuming answering questions truthfully, but I haven't followed the city council. There have been so many scandals, tragic. I do think that he does get a pass a lot from people, because people feel that Detroit has really been on the move. They're really happy with the development, with the progress, whether it's street lights or downtown. So my guess is people figure it's a tough job. They'll cut Mayor Duggan some slack. That's my gut. But I do not know the details of this particular allegation. I really don't.
Karen, you're basically waving your head right now back and forth saying, I am. Why do you disagree with that?
Because, and I understand, I mean, with all due respect, but the reality is that the biggest change in the city of Detroit has been its perception. The reality is not how it is being projected. For those of us who live here, we live a completely different reality than what you see in the confined areas of downtown and in Midtown. Midtown was already a burgeoning area. So, and I'm not saying that what he did or did not do was illegal. I'm not an expert in that area. What I'm saying is that no matter what questions arise, whether it's demolition, whether it's the dirt, whether it was the issue with the lady that they were steering money to that is now his wife, none of these things got any scrutiny that under any other administration would have been, you know,
We covered many stories on that.
What did you say, Charlie?
His wife's story.
Charlie.
One story, Charlie. One story.
This whole friendship thing is not,
story,
you know, even like
it's not that exciting.
The guy that you interviewed, the former U.S. attorney, you know, we should be concerned about the flippancy with which he responded. Like, oh, it's no big deal. I talked to Mike and he said it's okay. He didn't represent any degree of integrity and objectivity that would bring.
I disagree with that. I think you have a duty as the mayor of the city of Detroit. If somebody tells me that my congressman is going down for bribery,
why didn't he call the feds? Why did he call DPD? Why did he call DPD?
I think there's a bigger issue. I think there's a bigger issue.
Let's let Karen and Charlie, let's let Shri Tanadar chime in here for a moment. Shri, you've been also waving your head back and forth. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, you know, I'll take the mayor's word for it, but there is a bigger issue. In last 10 years, 100,000 Detroiters left the city and went to the suburbs. Okay, the citizens have been overcharged $600 million on their property taxes. There has been widespread water shutoffs, you know, and then what? Every 6 months, every year, we hear an elected official caught taking bribes. Now, who gets screwed with all this is the people of Detroit, people who are living in Detroit for generations, and they're just quietly walking away now. How are we going to deal with this systemic corruption in the city that's hurting our people?
I never thought I'd agree with Shri Tanadar more than I do today. Karen and Shri, I completely agree with you. The mayor has come across as a tough man done. Sure, he's done a lot of great things for the inner city, but I'm reading here, Wallet Hub did a rating of the city, of cities and best cities to live in, and they said that Detroit ranks dead last in the top 5 areas of raising children, family fun, health and safety, education, childcare, even affordability and social economics. And what's a mayor's job to do? A mayor's #1 job is to make sure that their city is the most inhabitable and best livable city in the state.
In Detroit, it's very expensive to live in. High insurance, high crime, our water has been reconfigured. One of your colleagues on Fox 2 moved into the city several years ago, and she said on Fox 2 that, you know, her taxes tripled, and yet she's not received the city services commensurate with that tax increase.
That was wasn't that Alexis Wiley?
No, it was not Alexis Wiley.
That was not Alexis Wiley. So, Rocky, I want to ask you a little bit about, let's get into this conference a little bit. Rocky, Governor Blanchard, there they are at the Mackinac Policy Conference. This is the first time we've had it since, of course, COVID, kind of sidetracked everything. When you take a look at what binding policy comes out of the Mackinac Policy Conference, there's a lot of people out there saying, I'm struggling to put gas in my tank at $5 a gallon. You got a bunch of politicos hanging out at the most expensive hotel in the state and just chatting it up over wine. Is that true?
Hard to know. I did watch the debate today, the 4 Republicans running for governor. That was interesting. I will say, I thought it was interesting.
Nothing ever happens. Nothing ever, there's big announcements, news. This is really a place where the lobbyists and the special interests can buy booze and food for the lawmakers.
That's exactly, Shri, you said it absolutely correct. You know what? In the old days when Governor Blanchard was the governor and Governor Engler, I remember going up there and I never missed a conference, either politically or with business. And there was 10 or 12 business men and women for every one group that was out there with their hand out, or a politician with their hand out. Today, it's the opposite. It's 12 politicians or 12 charities or 12 special interest groups out there with their hands out for every one business person. And I think Governor Blanchard and Shri hit the nail on the head. It's very
Governor, I want to give the governor an opportunity to say something again. What were you saying about the expectations of the Mackinac Policy Conference? You think that people expect too much to come out of this? I think you said.
I do. Look, it's a great opportunity to network, and Rocky is probably right that it's gotten it's just been magnified too much. But it's a good place for people to network and for business leaders to meet with various members of Congress, legislators, and others. What I found interesting was they did host a debate among the Republican candidates for governor. I thought they all, in their own way, did a good job. I thought it was intriguing that when we got into mass shootings, nobody wanted to mention the word guns. They all talked about mental health. I've never seen 4 Republicans talk about mental health so much in my life, I might add.
You gotta start listening, Governor.
And no one talked about banning assault weapons, which even Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, and George H.W. Bush recommended to Bill Clinton. It was interesting. So I see tonight, of course, Biden has reiterated his strong stance to ban assault weapons and other things. But they
Let's talk about that, Governor, for a moment with Rocky and the rest, and we're gonna actually get to that subject in a moment. But Rocky, for a moment, does it bother you at all that there wasn't any talk about guns at that debate today?
You know what? I'm not really that surprised that it didn't come up as much. I think that in Michigan, there's going to be a working group of people that will be hopefully coming across partisan lines, not to look at things that we both parties agree on, that we can work on and actually solve some of these problems, like hardening our schools, like mental health, and doing programs like that. Because, you know, we keep talking about guns, but we don't talk about the individual that committed the crime. We don't talk about what motivated that individual or what evil was in that person's mind. And that's the mental health aspect that we need to fix.
So let's continue this conversation on the other side of the break. We're out of time for this segment. When we come back, we'll talk about the recently downside field in the GOP race for governor as well. More on that and guns when we come back on Let It Rip. And welcome back to Let It Rip. We're joined by Rocky Rachowski, Karen Dumas, we're talking about Sri Tanadar, former Governor Jim Blanchard, and of course, Charlie Langton. Governor Blanchard, we want to talk to you a little bit about what you saw when you saw, of course, that half of the Republican candidates for your old job failed to qualify for the primary ballot. Your thoughts on that and that whole process?
Well, you know, first of all, you have to take responsibility for the people that circulate petitions. I think they outsourced it. They hired these firms which cheated. And so I find it incredible that Republicans who are talking about election fraud would commit election fraud in their petition. Really?
No, they didn't commit election fraud.
It's unheard of.
And they are not the victims. They're not the victims. This shows competence or incompetence. You're running to be the governor. You can manage a simple process of submitting the signatures?
No, listen, a few individuals couldn't. Hold on one second. A few individuals couldn't because they outsourced it to a corporation and they signed a contract. And you know as well as I do, a contract is a verifiable agreement that brings two people together in a actual agreement. So that's another issue. But the big issue here is that when we talk about fraud, let's not. The Secretary of State's job is to ensure that these signatures are correct.
Let's get Charlie Langton into the fold. Charlie, you've been covering this for a while, and you basically said a few times now, look, the buck stops with the candidate, whether you hired someone or not. This is their responsibility because they hired the company, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. There's no question in my mind. These candidates were lazy or a lackadaisical, or they just didn't do it. Listen,
and it's not that complicated.
An expert. It's not that complicated. Those are the rules. You need 15,000 signatures. You don't get them, you're off the ballot. Now, listen, they may have been victims of crimes. I don't doubt that for the moment. And they were, and whoever did this fraudulent circulating petitions, they should go to prison.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Especially Republicans. Republicans should absolutely want that. And I do think Dana Nessel is going to investigate. Jocelyn Benson turned it over to her. So absolutely, these people should be investigated. But the remedy here is not to put these candidates on the ballot. They have an option. They can run a write-in campaign if they want, or they can do something else. But they have to. That's it. They're off the ballot, and that's just the way it is at this point.
We have still 5 very good candidates that will take our message down the field and will offer a drastic difference to Governor Whitmer.
Let's talk about these 5. Let's talk about these candidates for a moment. Today, a lot of people said this was a non-eventful debate, but if you actually look at some of the things that were said, Governor Blanchard, you can chime in on this. Representative Ralph Rebrand saying, let's get rid of the general budget. Essentially, they're talking about state police, you're talking about prisons, you're talking about Medicaid. He's saying eliminate it, get rid of it. Maybe he's just talking about a concept. Garrett Soldano is saying, hey, let's make cuts to higher education, to the universities, $1.5 billion currently going to them. Tudor Dixon saying, hey, don't appropriate federal funds until after the election. When you heard these comments today, what went through your mind?
People who are not qualified to serve as governor, people that don't know how government works, people who are making pie in the sky promises, which is what gives politics and government a bad name.
I mean, like what Governor Whitmer has been doing for the last 4 years.
Strong, tough decisions, Rocky, you know that.
Tough decisions, yeah, tough decisions. Let's cut line 5 and cut off, make energy prices that much more difficult for citizens in Michigan to live under. Hasn't fixed the roads, hasn't improved our education, and quite frankly, people in Michigan are seeing that the Biden-Whitmer policies in Michigan are taking us down the wrong path.
Well, but Rocky, would eliminating the state budget, the general budget, as Rebrand said today,
yeah, I think it's a misspeech. Rube, no one can eliminate. The Constitution specifically states how the budget is done, and no one can just, even as a Governor Blanchard can tell you, and Sri can tell you, you can't just come in there and eliminate the budget. It's about cutting waste, and I think he said it for.
Why say that at a debate?
I think what he said was if he wants to appoint people who are going to cut the budget by 10% in his office. So I don't think I'm not going to eliminate a budget.
Which is cutting waste.
I think we have seen enough of this cutting. Governor Engler cut mental health services in our state that have yet been restored. And, they talk about mental health, but they are the ones Republicans have the ones who have cut funding. And
absolutely not, Sri. If you recall, what Governor Engler did was take it down to the community mental health. And so again, please do your homework before you make reckless comments. You took it down to community mental health. I think there's a part where we should be talking about what Governor Blanchard had of state health, mental health, and what Governor Engler did with community mental health. Because not everybody needs a state institutionalized, and some people need group homes. You need to tailor it to the individual, not just make blanket statements like that on public TV.
Well, look,
Governor, go ahead.
I've met a grandmother whose kid was in the ER for 23 days waiting for a psychiatric bed. And
you're making my point.
Every day. If the fines happens every day.
Governor, what were you going to say?
Nothing. I think these poor guys need to advance their cause. Rocky, you need, as you are, trying to advance the cause of the Republican candidates for governor. Sri, you're trying to advance your cause for Congress. I wish you both well. I will tell you this. Gretchen Whitmer is going to win decisively because she's made all the tough decisions. We have record low unemployment, and the roads are being fixed.
Your predictions are 50-50. I'll take them.
Karen Dumas, when you hear about the governor right now, you talk about the Republican candidates, essentially, even if they're talking about their thoughts on what they would do, saying, look, we got to stop spending so much. The governor right now, $74 billion budget, $3 billion in one-time spending. Too much?
Well, as a former Governor Blanchard said, I mean, during political season and campaign season, everybody's going to say what they think their potential voter base wants to hear. And I blew another tire today on a pothole. So, yeah, the roads are being fixed, but that's like my 4th tire this year already. So, it's a lot. It's complicated, but, she's not been without hiccups in her administration. The nursing home issues, have been an issue. The roads have been an issue. I think accountability has to be, increased for all of our elected officials, including the governor. I just don't think that we should take everything at what's put in a press release and just be given a pass. There is some accountability, and that doesn't necessarily mean that she's not worthy of support. That's up to everybody individually. But I do think we have to look at it honestly, and our expectations have to be realistic as well. Nobody can come in with a magic wand. One person can't solve all the problems, but we do expect leadership.
Charlie Langton, you had a chance to talk with all these candidates today. What did they tell you, and what is it that you think will set one candidate apart from another?
Well, I think that's the big issue. The big issue really is they're not running against Governor Whitmer right now. She's not on the Republican primary ballot. So there are 5 candidates running for the Republican nomination. 4 of them showed up. And I really think that they have to differentiate themselves between each other. And I think that's going to be the deciding factor here. I don't think you could say every single one of these Republicans is better than the governor. That's just political talk. It doesn't mean anything. I want to find out what really the differences are between these candidates and what makes them the better. And the other thing is political too. How can they run a legitimate race to compete with Governor Whitmer, who actually has done, by a lot of legitimate measurements, she's done fairly well. There are, of course, Karen's right. Of course, there are some hiccups in everyone's campaign. Nobody has a perfect job. No one does anything perfectly.
No.
And
Charlie,
she's gonna,
Charlie, I'll disagree. I'll disagree. I think number one, that these Republicans, to differentiate themselves, need to run against Governor Whitmer, not against each other, not differentiate each
I think
each
it's a
other
mistake.
from themselves,
you gotta win a
but from
primary.
Governor
You
England,
gotta win
from
the
Governor.
primary.
What's that?
Listen,
Rocky,
listen, we're all pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-Trump, okay? That takes about 75% of
Okay,
any
so
issue.
run
We can
against
fall back to
Governor
that.
Whitmer
What
and
else-
the
what else-
policies,
what
and
else?
let's see the person that can articulate the best policies against Governor Whitmer's policies. Furthermore, let's not forget, Governor Whitmer had a Republican legislature, the House and the Senate, that in many ways did stop her from making some terrible mistakes.
No,
So
I mean,
let's give some credit where credit is due.
No, she's accomplished a whole lot of things.
Give me one
without,
thing, Shri.
having the House
Give me one
or
thing.
without having the
Give
Senate.
me one thing, quick.
Well,
One thing.
she's fixed the road. She's handled
Oh, really?
COVID very well. She's
Handled COVID very well.
Yeah.
Governor, I want you to chime in for a moment before we go to break here and ask you the question about this whole support about President Trump. The former president basically stood next to Tudor Dixon and talked about her, took a picture with her, and that's the only candidate that he did that with. Is that going to help Tudor elevate her in this party? Is this still the party of Trump?
Sure. I think so. I think it's tragic. I think that Rocky would be a better candidate, by the way, than these people who are running, because he knows more about government, Rocky.
Thank you, Governor.
Reality is,
That's going to tank me in the Republican circles, but thank
Rocky,
you, Governor.
do a write-in campaign, Rocky. Do a write-in campaign. You can do it.
the Republican Party has lost its way in Michigan. It has. When guys like Fred Upton don't run for re-election, and lots of my friends who are not going to be Democrats, but are calling themselves independent now, who live, by the way, in Oakland County, Rocky.
Yeah.
I just think the Republican Party, Trump's influence needs to ebb so the Republicans, Main Street Republicans, can emerge. They're going to be a lot more formidable in elections. I'm not saying Republicans won't win some elections ahead. I do think Gretchen Whitmer will be reelected. She may bring in a Democratic state Senate, but serious Republicans would be a lot more formidable for us than what we're looking at with people who are still denying the election in 2020. I can't believe that.
Wait a minute, there's still Democrats that are denying the election.
We're going to take a break,
Democratic
and we're going to be
votes.
back with more Let It Rip coming up after this. Welcome back. Final thoughts. We'll start with you, Shri Thanedar.
Well, State Rep Shri Thanedar, I understand the struggles of working families, and that's why I'm running for Congress, to bring racial equity and close the wealth gap. My website is shriforcongress.com.
Governor, your thoughts.
Well, I watched President Biden tonight call for a bipartisan approach on gun safety, assault weapon bans, mental health services, school security, and he praised the Democrats and the Republicans who are negotiating right now for some package that can begin to improve our civilization and end the senseless violence. I hope it will include an assault weapon ban.
And Karen Dumas, final thoughts from you.
I think that there's an accountability factor here, not just of our elected officials, but also of ourselves. I mean, we all want a safe, place to live. We want our kids to be educated. Sure. We want to be able to live a quality of life, but we do need to hold our elected officials accountable, but we also need to hold ourselves accountable and start doing the right thing, not just for ourselves, but for each other.
That does it for this edition of Let It Rip. We're out of time. Good night.